Hikaru is just an ordinary student until one day he comes across something far from normal, a talking mechanical arm named Alma. From that moment on, his life is turned completely upside down. This isn't just any arm, it's part of the mysterious Mecha-Ude, devices that connect to people and grant them incredible abilities, but no one really knows where they came from or what they truly are. Hikaru is just a regular high school student, burdened by crippling social anxiety and no clue about what to do with his life. One morning, he wakes up early, drags himself out of bed, and heads to the train station, catching the first train to school. But something has been bothering him for a while. The night before, while cycling, he spotted a strange orange light in the sky and heard a voice calling out to him. Since then, he's been trying to figure out what happened, but hasn't found any clues. As he fiddles with his phone, he notices a pregnant woman standing in front of him, along with two elderly ladies giving him judgmental looks, clearly expecting him to give up his seat. Feeling the pressure to do the right thing, Hikaru stands up, ready to offer the seat to the woman. However, he hears a group of guys laughing at the back end, paranoid, thinks they're mocking him for being a goody two-shoes. Soon after, he realizes the laughter wasn't directed at him at all. Relieved that he wasn't the target, Hikaru relaxes a little. But while he was hesitating, the man next to him had already stood up and offered his seat to the woman. Now, Hikaru is left standing alone, embarrassed, and seriously considering getting off at the next stop. Suddenly, a few classmates board the train and spot him. With little choice, he joins them. As his friends start talking about their futures, Hikaru barely pays attention. His mind is still stuck on what happened the previous night. Curious, his friends ask what's on his mind, and Hikaru decides to tell them. He recalls hearing a voice late at night. When he opened the window to see where it was coming from, he noticed the area around the Kami building was strangely illuminated. Intrigued, he grabbed his bike and rode up a hill for a closer look. What he didn't know at the time was that a major battle was taking place at the Kagami building, where a girl with robotic arms was trying to steal an orange cube. She tried to escape via the rooftop, but was surrounded by a private police force that recognized her as a Mecha-Ude user. They tried to subdue her, but her mechanical arms made her hard to catch. When the police failed, they used specialized weapons to freeze her in place. Then, the head of the operation appeared and released a highly modified mechanical creature. The girl's arms reacted with fury to what the man had done. Without mercy, he grabbed the cube, intending to use it in future experiments. Determined to stop him, the girl managed to break free of the trap with the help of her arms, sinus and dex, and attacked the man. During the fight, the containment tube was damaged, and the cube was launched into the air. It was at that exact moment that Hikaru saw the explosion at the building and recorded everything. However, for some reason, the video didn't capture anything unusual. He also saw the cube falling near the building, but, once again, this didn't appear on the recording. His friends laughed, teasing him that it must have been a crazy dream. But, curious, one of them asks what the voice he heard sounded like. Hikaru, a bit embarrassed, admits that the voice was calling for help. His friends laugh again, suggesting it could have been a ghost, but Hikaru is certain of what he heard. Coincidentally, he hears the same voice again. Despite class starting soon, he runs off to try and follow the sound. Without knowing what he's looking for, he gets closer to the Kagami building but is stopped by a police officer. The officer explains that the company generously donated to the station in exchange for a favor, so no one is allowed to enter. Suddenly, the officer's radio goes off, saying that Mr. Kagami needs all officers in the back area. The officer leaves, momentarily forgetting Hikaru. For a moment, Hikaru considers leaving, as he's always been a law-abiding citizen. But then, the voice echoes again. Ignoring the no trespassing signs, he sneaks into the restricted area. After walking for a while, he spots a glowing cube on the ground and wonders if that's what was calling him. As he approaches, the cube starts speaking, startling him. Still, he reaches out to touch it, and a massive flash of light surrounds him. The cube shoots into the sky and lands on Hikaru's back, causing another flash, drawing even more attention. When he opens his eyes, he discovers a massive metallic arm growing out of his back. Panicked, Hikaru hears someone's voice, but sees no one, which only makes him more frantic. The arm then calls for his attention, trying to calm him down, Seeing a metal arm growing out of his back isn't exactly comforting, but the arm, visibly grateful, starts thanking him for freeing it. It tries to tell him its name but realizes it can't remember. Hikaru is still trying to process the fact that there's an arm coming out of his back, but he soon realizes that it's not actually attached to his body, just to his jacket. Before he can figure out what to do next, a drone appears to survey the area, making Hikaru suspect that the mechanical arm belongs to the Kagami group. Not wanting any trouble, Hikaru begins to remove the jacket to return it, but the drone doesn't hesitate. It activates its circular saws and attacks him. Desperate, Hikaru runs for his life, believing the drone is after him because of the arm. As he stumbles and tries to rid himself of the metallic appendage, he discovers that the drone is, in fact, trying to kill him. The arm then intervenes to protect him. Terrified by the near-death experience, Hikaru doesn't understand why the drone is targeting him and not the arm. The arm warns him, there's no time to stand still, more drones are on the way, and the only chance of survival is if they work together. Meanwhile, at Kagami headquarters, the president receives news that the drones have located the missing trigger arm. However, it's in the hands of some random kid. A superior asks if the boy has any connection to the organization of arms, but the investigation confirms that he merely found it by chance. Unconcerned about the boy's fate, the superior orders all available forces to set up a 2-kilometer perimeter to capture the arm at any cost. Back with Hikaru, he and the arm manage to hide from the drones. Relieved to be safe, Hikaru demands an explanation. What is this arm, and why is it being hunted? Unfortunately, the arm doesn't remember anything. Still, it knows that Hikaru is a kind person because he freed it. Normally, the arm wouldn't be able to move without Arbitrium, but with Hikaru, everything flows smoothly. Hikaru, trying to get out of this bizarre situation, decides he's going to abandon the arm along with his jacket since it can move on its own. However, the arm pleads not to be left behind, warning that the world outside isn't safe. In Hikaru's mind, the danger comes from being with the arm, so the best solution would be to get rid of it. But as he walks away, the arm starts to lose energy. Hikaru turns back and sees that it's almost collapsed. After a few tests, he confirms that the arm depends on his proximity to function. For better or worse, they are connected. Eventually, the drones find them again. This time, the arm decides to act on its own, grabbing the ground and dragging Hikaru away. From a nearby tower, Kagami's weapons developer watches the scene, disappointed by the trigger arm's poor performance but determined to recover it. He receives information that he's not the only one after the arm, meaning he'll have to deal with an old rival, Aki. Aki finally arrives at the area, following her informant's directions, which redirect her to the correct path. She decides to take a shortcut through an alley and temporarily disables her robotic arms to squeeze through the wall. As Hikaru, exhausted, struggles to keep running, the arm forces him to continue, draining his last bit of energy. Suddenly, Aki appears, throwing Hikaru to the ground and easily destroying the drones. She then turns to Hikaru and the arm, threatening to kill them if they don't comply. Dex, one of Aki's robotic arms, reminds her that her job is to protect them, not eliminate them. But before they can explain the situation, the weapons developer arrives, still bitter that Aki stole Alma, the trigger arm, from him. He promises to make her pay. With the distraction, Hikaru sees an opportunity to escape. Aki tries to follow him, but her Mecha-Ude is too large to fit through the narrow alleys. Hikaru runs again, but he's already starting to regret getting involved in this. The arm, seeing Hikaru struggle, tells him to leave it behind. Those chasing them only want Alma, and if Hikaru abandons it, he should be safe. Even though the arm is right, Hikaru hesitates to leave it behind. He knows Alma can't move without him. When Aki finally defeats the weapons developer and catches up to them, she threatens them once again. Alma offers to cooperate as long as Hikaru is freed, but Hikaru refuses. Even though he's reluctant, he can't abandon Alma now. Seeing that Hikaru won't back down, Aki prepares to fight. Hikaru isn't confident that he can win, but Alma encourages him. Together, they can defeat Aki. He just needs to move forward with confidence. Hikaru decides to trust Alma and charges at Aki. Aki, initially ready to defend herself, is caught off guard when Alma leaps into the air and transforms, knocking her to the ground. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Hikaru and Alma flee. Later, once the danger has passed, they emerge from their hiding spot. Meanwhile, Aki returns to base, reporting her failure to capture Alma. She couldn't have predicted that the boy would be able to use Alma's powers, but she knows that Kagami will be after him soon. They need to act quickly. The next day, with no place to leave Alma, Hikaru takes him to school, trying to keep a low profile so they won't be found. However, when he arrives in class, he's shocked to see that Aki has transferred to his class, and she doesn't seem happy about it. That was the end of episode 1. As Hikaru tries to ignore Aki's deadly gaze, something sinister unfolds in the shadows. Two agents, T and Ner, are watching his every move from a nearby building. They work for the Kagami group and have been tasked with retrieving the trigger arm at any cost, even if it means murder. However, T feels uncomfortable with the idea of killing a child. After class, Hikaru hides in the bathroom, hoping to escape Aki, but he never imagined she would follow him there. This time, though, she doesn't seem interested in a fight. Hikaru suspects she just doesn't want to cause a scene at school, but regardless, if she isn't going to fight, Alma suggests they try talking to Aki. Yesterday was so chaotic that they had no choice but to fight her, but now, thinking back, Aki was trying to be a little friendly at first, even if Hikaru doesn't remember that. Still, there aren't many people Hikaru can talk to about Alma. He can either talk to Aki or go to the police. He asks Alma what to do, but she isn't paying much attention, too busy playing with the toilet paper. On the other hand, Aki hears everything from the next stall and warns that going to the police is a terrible idea. They would hand Hikaru directly to the Kagami group. Then, Aki climbs into Hikaru's stall, declaring that she's there to be his bodyguard. This makes Hikaru so nervous about her being so close in the boys' bathroom that he bolts out, and Aki chases after him. A few minutes later, Hikaru manages to lose Aki and joins his friends for lunch. However, with Aki's persistent pursuit lately, his friends begin to suspect they might be in a relationship. Hikaru denies it, but it's hard to sound convincing, especially when Aki appears on the rooftop looking for him a second later. The friends call out to Aki, revealing Hikaru's location, but suddenly, Hikaru disappears. He managed to climb up and get out of sight in that brief moment. Alma doesn't understand why he is being so evasive since they had decided to try talking to Aki. At that moment, a classmate of Hikaru's, Miru, arrives on the rooftop, saying she has been looking for him everywhere. She introduces herself to Aki but doesn't seem too pleased with the encounter. Miru attributes Aki's cold stare to her nerves about being new and offers a welcome gift, a tray of cookies. Hikaru imagines Aki will freak out, but surprisingly, Aki seems intrigued by the cookies and grabs a handful, shoving them into her mouth. Miru is a bit shocked by how quickly Aki eats, but is happy her gift was well received, asking if they can be friends. Aki, nonchalantly, says she doesn't mind. She seems much more normal than Hikaru thought, but that doesn't change the fact that he doesn't want to talk to her. So, he puts on noise-canceling headphones and tries to sleep, escaping reality until the end of the day. Meanwhile, Aki continues to eat the cookies, and Miru asks about her relationship with Hikaru. However, Aki has completely forgotten that she should be looking for him. Wanting to help, Miru suggests she has an idea to leave Aki alone with Hikaru. Later, while Hikaru tries to sneak out of school unnoticed, Miru approaches him and hands him a handwritten letter from Aki. Hikaru already suspects what it's about, and as he feared, Aki is trying to ask him out. Miru ends up dragging Hikaru to an abandoned part of the school, not letting him leave, believing Aki wants to confess her love. With no options left, Hikaru enters the room where Aki is waiting and confronts her for involving Miru in this. Aki defends herself, claiming it was Miru's idea, but she followed him all day nonetheless. Now, he wants to know what Aki really wants from him. Aki reveals that she is a member of an organization called ARMS, tasked with taking care of Alma and being her bodyguard. Alma sees this as good news, thinking Aki will protect them, but Aki clarifies that her only job is to protect Alma, not caring about Hikaru. However, since Alma is connected to him, there isn't much Aki can do to separate them. As part of her mission, Aki needs to take both of them to HQ. Of course, she won't harm Hikaru if he cooperates, and Alma thinks that's great. However, Hikaru still feels insecure about going with Aki, as he isn't sure he can trust her. Alma understands Hikaru's concerns, but Aki seems to know something about him, and Alma still wants to find out what and who Hikaru really is. Feeling sorry for Alma, Hikaru decides to agree to go with Aki, even without trusting her, but first he wants to understand why Alma loses power whenever she is away from him. After hearing this, Aki appears perplexed. It shouldn't be possible for a mecha to merge with a jacket, and there's no information on anything like that. Finally, she approaches him and says she needs to take him for some tests, but Hikaru becomes frightened by her aggressiveness and asks Alma if there's anything he can do to escape this. Alma tries to use the power they used against her yesterday, but despite the flash of light, nothing happens. Alma doesn't have enough strength. That leaves only one option, so Hikaru grabs Alma and starts to run, but when he tries to leave through the front door, Miru stops him, saying he should finish talking to Aki before leaving. Meanwhile, outside, T and Nur are watching the entrance of the building. However, since there is a schoolgirl standing outside, they can't do anything without exposing themselves. Inside, Hikaru tries to find an exit, but all the others are blocked. Thus, his only choice seems to be to go up. Meanwhile, Aki is still looking for him, and Deck suggests she go down the right hallway, while Sinis advises the left hallway, but Aki ignores both and decides to go down, breaking through the floor and landing directly on Hikaru. Now, there's nowhere left for Hikaru to run. Aki doesn't understand why he is fleeing when he had the chance to spare her yesterday. Hikaru insists he would never kill anyone, but Aki no longer listens to him. To her, Hikaru must be plotting something and using Alma. Alma tries to defend him, insisting that Hikaru is not a bad person, but Aki still doesn't believe it, and when Alma tries to use her power to protect him, again nothing happens. Aki sees this as proof that Hikaru is not truly connected to Alma and decides to eliminate him for her own safety. At that moment, Miru enters the room, drawn by a loud noise. The position in which Hikaru and Aki find themselves suggests something entirely different to her, and realizing the situation, Miru quickly turns around and leaves, leaving them alone. As soon as she disappears, Aki prepares to resume her mission to eliminate Hikaru, but he has already vanished, hiding once again. Aki sighs and begins her search. Hikaru, who gets up and tries to leave through the front door, is interrupted by Nur, who is wearing one of the Kagami group's uniforms. Instantly, Hikaru goes on high alert. Nur says he needs help, but Hikaru is not inclined to cooperate, especially after the nearly fatal attack from the drones. Nur apologizes, claiming it was a mistake, but confesses that he regrets not being able to finish him off earlier. In a swift move, he strikes Hikaru with a sonic cannon. Although it doesn't cause physical damage, Hikaru falls to his knees, dizzy and disoriented. With Hikaru incapacitated, Nur kicks the door, looking for a clear angle to shoot at Tuss. However, she ends up getting in his way, blocking the shot. When Nur steps back, Alma seizes the chance and drags Hikaru away, preventing him from being hit. But the danger is still imminent, and Hikaru gets up, running back into the building. Tuss yells at Nur for messing up the shot, but determined to end the situation, she begins shooting through the walls, hoping to hit Hikaru. He genuinely worries that she might end up killing him. Alma, on the other hand, has a different concern. Even though Nur is using a mecha, she doesn't sense any consciousness in it. Just then, Nur hits Hikaru with another sonic wave. He collapses at the end of the hallway, and Tuss takes the opportunity to shoot, but at the last second, Aki saves him. Nur launches another sonic wave, and Aki tries to block it. However, just like with Hikaru, she also becomes dizzy and falls. Nur enjoys the situation, relishing in the suffering of others, but Aki refuses to be taken down. Her priority is to protect Alma. She gets up and urges Hikaru to flee while he still can. Reluctant to leave her alone, Hikaru hesitates, but Aki pleads for him to run, insisting that they can't let the Kagami group get their hands on Alma. He finally listens to her request and flees while she keeps Nur occupied. But just when it seems like Aki is gaining the upper hand, Nur pulls out a surprise weapon. Hikaru begins to climb the stairs, frustrated by being constantly chased. However, Alma stops him, insisting that they shouldn't leave Aki alone. He remembers that Aki said they should escape to ensure Alma's safety, but the idea of abandoning Aki does not sit well with Hikaru. So, Alma jumps off his back, punches the wall, and creates an opening for Hikaru to escape. With a burning desire to help Aki, Hikaru agrees to go with Alma since she can't move on her own. But they need a plan before facing Nur and his sonic cannon. Meanwhile, Nur manages to subdue Aki using handcuffs that remove the consciousness of the UD mecha, and now he takes her to the rooftop, where Tusk can shoot her. To everyone's surprise, Tusk comes down personally, irritated that it's taking too long to finish the job. She mocks Aki for being so pathetic, but despite her desire to kill her, Tusk has orders to bring Aki back alive. She tells Nur to go back to the building to look for Hikaru, and he doesn't need to search long. Hikaru is already climbing the stairs. Spotting Nur, Hikaru tries to punch him, but since he's not an experienced boxer, he misses. Although he's not the most skilled fighter, he manages to dodge Nur's attacks. Nur decides to shoot anyway, but Hikaru wasn't bluffing when he said he was immune to the sonic wave. He's wearing noise-canceling headphones. His intention was to buy time for Aki to recover, but when he looks at her, he realizes she has been captured. This throws a wrench in his plans, but he has a better idea and launches Alma toward Aki to free her from the handcuffs. Unfortunately, Alma begins to lose power as soon as she moves too far away from Hikaru, so he needs to run closer. Surprisingly, Tusk, who should be an accurate shooter, misses an easy shot. However, Hikaru and Alma manage to free Aki. As soon as Aki regains mobility, she grabs Tusk and uses her as a human shield, advancing against Nur. Nur hesitates to use his attack against Aki, but she orders him to shoot in the name of the mission. He complies, but instead of hitting Aki, he takes out Tusk. Aki then seizes the opportunity and knocks out Nur. With the building damaged from the fight, it is about to collapse. Before that can happen, Tusk regains consciousness and flies away, leaving Nur to be buried under the rubble along with the others. Aki and Hikaru emerge unscathed, but soon Aki's boss from ARMS appears, clearly dissatisfied with the destruction she caused during the mission. They take her back to headquarters, and when Hikaru finally wakes up, he is introduced to the leader of the ARMS group, Alges, and his mecha, Fist. Alges explains that they fight against the Kagami group, which seeks to claim all mechas and control them as slaves. Alma, without remembering anything about them, discovers that Fist is her brother and that they need her help to win this war. Without hesitation, Alma offers to help and convinces Hikaru to do the same. However, Aki and Alges clarify that they actually only need Alma for this, and Hikaru does not need to be present. While Hikaru was asleep, some tests were conducted to measure the arbitrium levels in his body. Arbitrium is an energy generated by the human mind and is the fuel necessary for all UD mecha. However, when Hikaru's arbitrium levels were charted, the result was almost laughable. For comparison, here's what an average UD mecha user's levels look like. If it wasn't already obvious, Hikaru is practically a failure with UD mecha, and there's no gentle way to put it. Alges agrees that maybe Hikaru was responsible for awakening Alma, but he's also the reason Alma is trapped in a jacket, unable to use his power. Even so, they have no choice but to leave Alma in Hikaru's care, though Al firmly warns him never to act alone since he simply can't defend himself. Alma tries to defend Hikaru, pointing out that he's the only reason he hasn't been captured by the Kagami group yet, but Quinn counters that, regardless, Hikaru lacks the power to control Alma, making him a liability. At this moment, Aki intervenes, saying she believes Hikaru can indeed awaken Alma's potential. After all, he channeled Alma's power the first time they met, so she's confident that, with a bit of training, he can get stronger. So far, the training has consisted of Alma doing push-ups on the school roof, and although Hikaru appreciates Aki's initiative, he's unsure of its effectiveness. After all, Only Alma is moving while he just stands still. Aki insists that training Arbitrium is more a matter of spirit, so Hikaru just needs to get excited and focused, which will make him stronger. Even though he doesn't understand how this can increase his Arbitrium, Hikaru decides to go along, for now. Shortly after, Aki receives a call from ARMS, summoning her to headquarters. She interrupts the training and takes Hikaru and Alma with her. There have been several recent incidents where UD Mecha were forcibly ripped from their users. This is already the third case this week. Alice suspects it could be the work of a new Kami agent, and the priority is to recover the stolen UD Mecha before it's too late. Alma, confused, asks what too late means, and Dex explains that if a UD Mecha is forcibly removed from someone's body, they will die within a few days. The reason is unclear, but it's believed that Arbitrium starts leaking from the fusion point, weakening the person until they die. Much about Arbitrium remains a mystery, but what they do know is that it has profound impacts on the human body. For example, anyone fused with a UD Mecha gains incredible physical abilities. However, since Alma hasn't fused directly with Hikaru, he's still an ordinary human. Noticing some marks on the victim's arms, Aki immediately deduces that the assailant must be using a hot-type mecha. Alice already guesses where this is leading and reminds her that her mission now is to protect Alma at all costs, forbidding her from directly involving herself in this case, even if she has personal reasons. As soon as Alice walks away, Aki ignores everything he said and announces there's something she wants to investigate for personal reasons, and, since she needs to protect Hikaru, he's coming with her. Meanwhile, the Kagami group is desperately searching for the whereabouts of Jun, Kagami's younger brother, who apparently stole an experimental artificial UD mecha and disappeared, with no one knowing what he plans to do with it. The leader of the 3rd Division offers to solve the problem, but since they were the division that allowed Alma to escape last time, the White Crows take over the task this time. Later, Hikaru follows Aki late into the night, realizing she's investigating the case despite Alice's orders. He wonders if it's really safe for them to be there alone. Aki refuses to respond, but soon, they hear the sound of horns nearby. On the other side of the containers, the White Crows are searching for Kagami's younger brother. The group's leader, Amada, orders them to continue searching the area, but Aki and Hikaru get too close to them. Hikaru thinks interacting with the Kagami group is a terrible idea, but Aki assures him everything will be fine as long as he stays by her side and hides Alma. She asks Amada if he knows anything about a hot-type UD mecha user. At first, they think she's just an ordinary girl, but when UD mecha are mentioned, Amada and his group become hostile, as they can't allow the public to discover the existence of mecha. They attempt to capture her, and Aki is forced to fight them, calling Sinus and Dex to help. Amada is surprised to realize she's also a mecha user, but he still orders the White Crows to regroup and attack again. In the chaos, Hikaru ends up pushed aside, and as he tries to get up, he spots a boy with an inhaler hiding in a corner. Hikaru warns the boy of the danger and asks if he's okay, but the boy doesn't respond and runs off. Concerned, Hikaru decides to follow him, leaving Aki to face the White Crows. Amada notices and orders his Mecha Joe to transform into a motorcycle to pursue them. As Hikaru chases the boy, some White Crow members catch up to them, but Hikaru stands in front of the boy to protect him. They are ready to beat Hikaru if necessary to capture the boy, but before they can attack him, Alma steps in and blocks the hit, firmly resolved to protect Hikaru. At that moment, they see Amada and his motorcycle UD mecha charging straight toward them. Hikaru tries to shout for the boy to run, but when he turns, he realizes the boy has already vanished. Amada loses his initial target, but, seeing Alma, changes his plan and decides to capture him instead. Alma realizes that he and Hikaru are the new targets and tries to drag him to safety. But in terms of speed, Alma doesn't stand a chance against a motorcycle. Soon, Amada catches up and grabs Alma, boasting about capturing the famous trigger arm. Just then, Aki suddenly appears and knocks him off the bike. Taking advantage, she questions Amada and Joe about a hot-type UD mecha user. Fearing being crushed by a container, they agree to talk, but without any real information, Aki lets them go. She's frustrated at not finding any leads and furious at Hikaru for going off alone. He tries to explain that he saw a boy in trouble and just wanted to help, but Aki doesn't accept his excuses. She scolds him, saying his impulsiveness almost led to Alma's capture. While she wants to trust him, she reminds him he's still entirely defenseless and unable to handle these situations alone. Meanwhile, the boy from before watches everything from a rooftop, showing an unusual interest in Alma and waiting for the right moment to act. Down below, Hikaru, equally irritated with Aki, tells her that she's the one who dragged him along against his will and that if anyone's at fault, it's her. He also complains that she didn't even explain what was happening, so he sees no reason to obey her. Determined, he announces that he's leaving. Sinis and Dex ask Aki if it's really safe to let him go alone, but, still upset, she coldly replies that she doesn't care what he does. As Hikaru walks away, Alma tries to persuade him to apologize to Aki, reminding him that she's only trying to protect him. Hikaru, however, refuses. Observing the quarrel, Jun thinks this is the perfect chance to steal Alma since Aki and Hikaru are at odds. But before he can move forward, Aki intercepts him, still determined to keep them safe. Annoyed by the interruption, Jun activates his Mecha-Ude, revealing it as a heat type, which infuriates Aki, making her think he's the user she's been looking for. However, after a brief fight, Dex realizes he isn't the target. This moment of distraction allows Jun to slip past, putting Aki in a vulnerable position. Meanwhile, Hikaru is reflecting on the argument with Aki when suddenly his phone rings. Alma urges him to apologize, but upon answering, he sees a photo of Aki unconscious on the ground. Shortly after, a call from Jun on her phone informs him that he removed Aki's Mecha-Ude, and without it, she'll die in a few hours. If Hikaru wants to save her, he must meet him at the designated location. Hikaru's first reaction is to call Alice and explain what happened, but Alice forbids him from going after Jun, knowing that's precisely what Jun wants. He promises to send agents to track Jun and insists that Hikaru and Alma refrain from taking any action. Tired of everyone telling him he's too weak to act, Hikaru starts to believe they may be right. But Alma reminds him that he's capable of great things when he truly commits. Hikaru admits that all his heroic actions so far were influenced by Alma, and that alone, he would still be a coward. He acknowledges his vulnerability but knows he's not alone now, and so he asks Alma to give him strength for what lies ahead. Hikaru and Alma head to the abandoned warehouse marked on the map. Upon entering, they're greeted by Jun's smirk. Alma asks why he's doing this, and Jun explains that he wants the most powerful Mecha-Ude. Sinis and Dex are good, but they're nothing compared to what he truly seeks. He wants the trigger arm, the Mecha-Ude rumored to give the strongest body to whoever merges with it. Without delay, Jun charges with his mecha, forcing Hikaru to run through the area to dodge his attacks. Hikaru tries to get close to grab Sinis and Dex, but Jun blocks every move, taunting him and calling him weak. Although Hikaru doesn't disagree with his weakness, he refuses to let it stop him from doing what's right. He charges again, breaking through Jun's defenses and landing a solid hit. Frustrated with the trouble Hikaru is causing, Jun, already exacerbated by his asthma, decides to end it all at once. He forms a cage around Hikaru and electrocutes him until he passes out, capturing him and trying to rip Alma from his body. Relieved to finally have Alma, Jun is shocked to see him still moving and gets knocked down. He doesn't understand how a Mecha-Ude can act alone and is further bewildered when Hikaru, even on the brink of death, begins to rise as well. Hikaru reaches out toward Alma, and as they touch, Alma's true power awakens. Desperate, Jun tries to form a fist to strike them, but is completely overwhelmed by Hikaru and Alma, who destroy the blow effortlessly. They advance for the final attack, and when Jun tries to block, Hikaru knocks him down with a final punch. Jun is defeated. After the battle, Hikaru and Alma think they can finally relax, but soon realize they were wrong. The leader of the White Ravens appears, and both prepare to fight again, but he reassures them, explaining he wasn't hired to fight them this time. He only wants to take June and withdraw, along with recovering Senes and Dex. However, Hikaru refuses to let him take the Mecha-Ude. The man is prepared to force the situation, but June intervenes, insisting he wants to be the one to defeat Hikaru and forbidding the leader from hurting him. Reluctantly, the man concedes and returns the Mecha-Ude to Hikaru, but promises they will meet again, and next time, Hikaru won't escape so easily. Sometime later, Aki wakes up in a hospital, with Senes and Dex reconnected to her. Upon learning that Hikaru saved her, she finds him on the rooftop, where he's attempting to stitch Alma back onto his jacket. Sitting beside him, the atmosphere grows a bit tense. Hikaru asks what she was looking for the previous night, and Aki explains she's seeking her family's killer. Her only clue is that he uses a heat-type Mecha-Ude, though June wasn't responsible. Aki admits her thirst for revenge led her to act impulsively, thanks Hikaru for saving her, and offers to help with the stitching, but, being terrible at it, Hikaru tries to stop her. At this moment, Meru appears with sweets and misinterprets the situation, adding to the awkwardness. Now an official member of ARMS, Hikaru is sent on his first mission a few days later. He finds himself on top of a truck transporting captured Mecha-Ude. Peering in, he sees a burly, intimidating man assaulting a scientist. The other ARMS members anticipated something like this and remind Hikaru to stick to the plan and activate the EMP when the truck crosses the intersection ahead. Hikaru intends to comply, but upon seeing the man mistreating a chained mecha, Alma refuses to wait and acts impulsively, causing an accident that flips the truck on the road. Hikaru manages to escape but must run, as Alma has revealed his location, turning him into a target. The burly man uses the truck to block Hikaru's escape route, complicating the situation. Fortunately, T, a member of ARMS, intervenes with his mecha, Carex, launching missiles to divert attacks aimed at Hikaru. However, the man draws an arm cannon and attacks. Before Hikaru is hit, T rescues him, and Hikaru thanks him for the help, while Alma apologizes for the mess he caused. However, there's little time to talk, as the man spots them again and charges. The situation seems to worsen until Aki appears and takes him down. Aki scolds Hikaru and Alma for ruining a simple mission and instructs T to take them away before they cause more trouble. The man, upon standing, notices that Aki has 2 Mecha-Ude, but still believes he has the advantage with his 3. He tries to kick her, but Aki blocks easily. Then, the man attempts to fire his laser, but runs out of power and collapses. Observing the situation, Aki comments on the stamina required to use a Mecha-Ude, showing that the man isn't ready to handle multiple mechas. While she calls in the recovery team, a mysterious individual appears and uses a heat-type mecha on the man, rejuvenating his strength. Aki struggles against the man's enhanced strength, and her chances of winning seem slim until Hikaru appears, rushing in and pushing him back. Aki shouts that he should have fled, but Hikaru refuses to leave her in danger. The man fires a laser cannon, but Hikaru and Alma dodge with ease. He then tries to crush them with a truck, but Hikaru charges forward and defeats him with a punch. After the fight, T congratulates Hikaru for his efforts, praising him for rescuing the UD mechas. Aki, however, seems more concerned about the man being taken to HQ. Later, while showering, Aki is haunted by flashbacks of her sister and the promise she failed to keep, to protect her. Now, her only goal is to avenge her family. As she leaves the shower, she finds a scientist waiting, who reports on the captured man. Unfortunately, he didn't obtain any useful information, as the man's mechas weren't the hot type, though Aki is certain she saw one. The scientist offers to help, suggesting she rely on him instead of Hikaru, but Aki barely listens and leaves to find Hikaru. At Hikaru's house, Alma wakes up and realizes they both overslept. If Hikaru doesn't wake up soon, they'll be late for school. Alma tries dragging him out of bed by his pants, even offering to help him change as Hikaru groggily resists, struggling to focus on the day ahead. One day, Aki climbs into Hikaru's room through the window, only to find he's not yet ready for school. She offers to help him get dressed, insisting it's non-negotiable. Meanwhile, at school, the students are buzzing with excitement over the arrival of a new transfer student, rumored to be wealthy. When the door opens, everyone turns to see Aki pushing Hikaru, who's only partially dressed, immediately sparking rumors. Meru, quick to imagine a romantic scenario, begins fantasizing about a relationship between the two. But Aki quickly drops Hikaru on the floor and mentions that there's a new student coming, news that surprises even her. Soon after, an announcement over the PA system calls Hikaru to the rooftop. He and Aki go up and find June, the new student, waiting. As soon as Sinis and Dex see him, they attack instantly, still resentful for what he did to Aki during their last encounter. But June blocks the attack with his mecha, annoyed by the interruption. Preparing to retaliate, he's reminded by a message from Todo, leader of the White Ravens, about the promise not to use his mecha at school. June tries to justify himself, but Todo permits no exceptions, forcing June to deactivate his mecha and back off. Even so, Aki wants to knock him out, but Hikaru stops her, noting that he clearly doesn't want to fight, so she decides to let him go, for now. Before leaving, June declares that he'll one day take the trigger arm for himself. He explains that the scientist who created his mecha said it would take time for him to fully adapt to its body, but in the meantime, he's observing Hikaru to understand how he uses Alma so well. Noticing that June calls Alma trigger arm, Hikaru asks if he knows more about it, as Alma has lost her memory. But before June can answer, Aki attacks him, considering him a threat. However, Alma prevents the attack, pointing out that they need to discover more about the past June shares with her. June takes advantage of the distraction to step away, reminding Hikaru that his mecha restrictions apply only at school. Anywhere else, he won't hesitate to fight. Later, as Hikaru and Aki walk down the halls, she moves close enough to make him uncomfortable. To create some distance, Hikaru mentions an imaginary rice ball, but Aki follows him everywhere he goes. He manages to slip away using his lunch as a distraction, only to end up without anything to eat. At that moment, he hears June's voice, watching him from a tree, as he ponders asking Todo how Hikaru controls the trigger arm without training. Todo doesn't know but suggests that perhaps Hikaru's food has something to do with it. With a black credit card, June offers to pay for Hikaru's lunch to find out what he eats. While Hikaru accepts the offer, wanting to discuss Alma's past, Aki shows up and intervenes, rejecting June's approach but accepting the lunch. Shortly after, Hikaru heads to the restroom for a moment of peace, remarking to Alma that he's unsure how to approach June for information since Aki always intervenes. He decides that the sports tournament might be his chance. However, while searching for June on the field, he takes a ball to the face as June observes from a tree, surprised at Hikaru's slow reaction, considering he possesses the strongest mecha. June then senses something and dodges, but another ball hits Hikaru in the head, knocking him out. The ball was thrown by Aki, intending to hit June but accidentally knocking out Hikaru. Seizing the moment, Aki ties Hikaru up with tape and proposes a symbolic fight with June to determine who will keep him. Still resentful of June, Aki prepares for a battle, while Meru watches, prompting them to agree to a fists-only showdown, adding humor and tension to the confrontation. Meru enjoys the scene as Alma pleads with Hikaru to convince Aki to give up, as he still needs to talk to June. After some thought, Hikaru realizes the only thing that might convince Aki to relent is food. He stands up and shouts that if Aki allows him a few minutes alone with June, he'll treat her to a buffet. The tempting offer makes Aki agree, and she drags Meru away, giving Hikaru and June a moment of privacy. Once alone, June asks what Hikaru wanted to discuss. Hikaru and Alma take the opportunity to question him about Alma's past, as the Kagami group seems very interested in capturing him. Alma reveals that she's lost all her memories, and any information June can provide would be helpful. June is surprised to see that the trigger arm truly remembers nothing, but he mentions there are many records about him in the Kagami group's archives. He then shows a photo of Alma alongside Yakumo Kagami, the group's founder and the one who transformed the city. The revelation shocks Hikaru and Alma, but June can't offer further explanations, as the photo was taken decades ago. Meanwhile, Aki watches the scene from the bridge, with Meru tied up beside her. She receives a call from the scientist, who found a lead on the worm-type mecha user she was searching for. Later, Hikaru and Alma go to the city library to research Yakumo Kagami. Alma is puzzled to see how much people seem to love the group, despite their terrible actions. Hikaru agrees that the Kagami group has made mistakes, but argues that, from the people's perspective, they've done a lot to improve the city. While researching, they find a portrait of Yakumo, and Alma gets emotional, even shedding robotic tears, feeling that he's important to him, though he can't remember who he is. Elsewhere, Tammy is captured by the worm-type mecha user, and Aki is the first to arrive. Before she can help, the user rips Carrick from Tammy's body and throws it towards Aki. Carrick is then crushed until it shatters. Furious, Aki, Sinis, and Dex attack the worm user, but he dodges and throws something into the hole left in Tammy's body, turning him into a puppet to fight Aki. The user tries to escape, but while Aki wants to make sure Tammy is okay, she also wants to capture the worm user. She knocks Tammy out and removes the control device. Hikaru receives a call about Tammy's condition and rushes to check on him. He finds him unconscious in an alley and takes him back to headquarters. Thanks to Hikaru's quick action, Tammy should survive, but Carrick isn't as fortunate. The mode, mechanical life forms, can die like humans, and nothing can change that. They came from a different dimension searching for Orella, the father of all UD mechas. During an experiment to awaken him, an accident occurred, and Alma was forced to use all his power to seal him, resulting in his memory loss. The key to Orella lies in Alma's forgotten memories, and depending on who obtains this information, the fate of the world could be at stake. When Aki found Quinn, he came with news. The heat-type user she's been searching for is still on the loose. He realized this after noticing in the reports that someone had been extracting mecha from people, aside from June. This had been happening for months, so Aki grabbed him by the collar, furious, asking why he hadn't told her sooner. Defensively, he explained that he didn't know either, he only found out by hacking the ARMS database to help her. She let him go, but the fact that the information had been there for months meant that Alice knew all along and hadn't told her. Quinn commented that maybe Alice was investigating personally, as she'd been tracking these incidents for 8 years. Just then, an alarm sounded, the heat-type user was active again, and Aki ran out to confront him. Soon, she found him in an empty garage, ready to avenge her parents and sister, who had died years ago. But as she approached to attack, she saw the person's face. It was Fubuki, her younger sister. When they were kids, Aki and Fubuki used to play with Sinis and Dex, though Aki never understood the purpose of the game. Shortly after, their mother called Fubuki out of the room for an experiment. Normally, Aki would have gone, but her leg was hurt, so Fubuki went instead. Fubuki left smiling, but that was the last time Aki saw her. Soon after, an explosion took over the place, and her parents and Fubuki disappeared, until now. Aki, Sinis, and Dex were in shock seeing Fubuki alive. Fubuki, for her part, was happy to see Aki but clearly weakened, with a cough and overall frailty. Her heat-type mecha appeared, but before she could do anything, Sinis and Dex pinned it against the wall. Though there were many unanswered questions, they needed to leave before the ARMS agents arrived. When the agents entered the garage, they found nothing except a crack in the wall and Aki's broken hair clip. Alice knew she had been there. Outside, Aki held the heat-type mecha hostage, demanding answers. She asked if he was responsible for her parents' deaths. The mecha tried to explain, saying it had all been an accident, but Sinis and Dex interrupted, convinced he was lying. Sinis had been with Fubuki on the day of the incident and remembered the mecha attacking everyone, though he didn't know why. Fubuki begged Aki to stop, saying it wasn't Amaryllis's fault but her own, apologizing repeatedly. Amaryllis tried to calm her. There seemed to be much more to the story than they had imagined. Sinis and Dex asked Amaryllis to explain what had happened that day. On the day of the incident, everything seemed normal. Fubuki had been telling their mother about the game with Aki. The experiment was meant to amplify Arbitrium, so Amaryllis and another woman entered the chamber. But the moment Amaryllis exchanged glances with Fubuki, an unexpected phenomenon caused both of their arbitrium to resonate. Amaryllis tried to stop the process, but it only worsened the situation. Fubuki wanted to talk to Aki about what had happened, but never had the courage. She blamed herself for their parents' deaths. Amaryllis assured Fubuki it wasn't her fault, but to Aki, Amaryllis was still to blame. Despite Fubuki's pleas, Aki was determined to end Amaryllis's life right there. But under the stress, Fubuki fainted. Amaryllis suggested taking her to a hospital but said it wouldn't help because Fubuki had developed a condition preventing her from producing her own arbitrium, and no arms doctor could help her. So far, they had only managed to control her symptoms, but the situation was critical. Amaryllis stated that there was only one way to save Fubuki, but it would be extremely difficult. The next morning, Hikaru's alarm rang, and Alma woke him, as Aki usually came through the window at that hour. But today, the window remained untouched. Instead, Aki rang the doorbell. Hikaru and Alma were surprised since she never did that, but from her demeanor, they understood it wasn't the time to ask questions. At that moment, Maru approached the group with an idea. With a big test approaching, she suggested a group study session and even invited June, who had been spying on Hikaru from afar all morning. She walked over to him and asked if he'd join, but June refused with a smirk, saying he didn't come to school to learn. Maru ignored the comment and, excitedly, yelled to Hikaru, asking if they could study at his house. Hikaru hesitated, and although he liked the idea of spending time with Maru, he already foresaw that Aki and June would end up arguing, and he preferred to avoid that at his place. He tried to convince her to drop the idea, but Maru insisted, asking Aki to back her up. Aki politely declined, but Maru pushed, saying it was the perfect chance to visit Hikaru's house. Aki, who went to his house every morning, didn't see anything special in it and walked away. Hikaru followed her, sensing something was wrong, but Aki closed herself off and didn't want to talk. Meanwhile, at ARMS, one of the scientists, tired of being kept in the dark about the situation, approached Quinn and asked if he had any information about Aki, who hadn't shown up at headquarters in some time. Quinn initially denied knowing anything, but after a bit of persuasion, he admitted he might have some idea of what was going on. Elsewhere, Aki was at her sick sister's side, while Amaryllis explained how they had been handling the situation so far. Unable to generate her own arbitrium, Fubuki had been surviving thanks to the arbitrium Amaryllis had been extracting from other mecha users and transferring to her. However, Fubuki's illness was progressing too fast, and her time was running out. Amaryllis urged Aki to do whatever it took to ensure her sister's survival. But everything pointed to the only way to save her being, to take Hikaru's life. At the same time, all over the city, mecha users who had been infected by Amaryllis, both ARMS agents and Kagami group members, began having violent outbursts for no apparent reason. Alice, however, seemed to know what was behind it. ARMS deployed all available agents to contain the out-of-control mecha users, and the Kagami group received similar orders. Later that night, Mio, June, and Hikaru are on their way to his house for the study session. However, as they walk, Hikaru receives an urgent message from Alice and, with no choice, cancels the meeting and runs in the opposite direction. Soon after, he arrives at the ARMS headquarters, where Alice apologizes for the sudden call and asks for his help. Several mecha users have recently lost control, and Alice believes that the person behind this is the Heat-type mecha user. She also has a video of Aki interacting friendly with this user, which makes her believe that Aki might be involved. If that's true, it would mean that Aki has betrayed both humanity and the mecha group. For now, Alice wants to capture her for questioning, but since she is a powerful mecha user, force may be necessary. Alma and Hikaru are incredulous about Alice's suspicions of Aki, as she is a valuable ally. However, leading an organization doesn't allow decisions based on feelings. The only reason Aki joined ARMS was because their goals aligned. If that has changed, nothing stops her from betraying them. Hikaru refuses to believe that Aki would do something like that and runs off to find her before ARMS does, determined to understand what's going on, or at least, that's the plan. Quinn, however, points out that Hikaru has no idea where to look. After considering the options, Quen suggests a solution: track Aki with the help of someone Hikaru recognizes as the same person who tried to kill him days earlier. Warner clearly doesn't want to be there, but seems to have no choice. Before discussing the plan, Warner's mecha appears and begins apologizing profusely for Warner's actions the other day. Hikaru is confused, as he thought the mecha was under mind control. However, after its capture, Arms managed to undo the restraints and free Karu. Quen hesitated to allow Karu and Warner to fuse again, but no one else was capable of the mission, and Kimaru insisted on participating. Kimaru is determined to teach Warner to fight for justice, ensuring he will learn, even if he has to hammer the concept into his head. He forces Warner to kneel and promise Hikaru and Alma that he will be useful in the mission. In the city, Kimaru tracks Aki while Warner grumbles, saying he'd rather be at home. Annoyed, Kimaru scolds him, demanding that he work harder to make up for his mistakes. Hikaru and Alma begin to question if this is really the best option to find Aki, but Kimaru reassures them that it's only a matter of time until they locate her, as he is using acoustic sonar to track her arbitrium. At that moment, Hikaru is attacked from behind, but Karu pulls him in time. The attacker is June, who, tired of Hikaru always running from him, declares that he won't leave him until he discovers the secret of his power. With June nearby, Alma asks if he would be willing to help find Aki. June never liked Aki, so why would he help? To convince him, Alma promises to reveal some of Hikaru's secrets during the study session if he agrees. June agrees, and soon the news reaches Toto, who informs June's brother and asks if they should send someone to watch him. June's brother, however, is not concerned about his safety and states that the company is the priority, so he won't send anyone to monitor him. Meanwhile, Karu tracks Aki's arbitrium to a parking lot, where he senses a strong signal, believing she is nearby. Upon arrival, they find Aki, who seems determined to follow Amaryllis's advice, if it means saving her sister. Hikaru and Alma noticed Aki's strange behavior. Alma, attempting to understand the situation, asked with a serious tone whether Aki had become involved in something related to the war. Before Aki could respond, Alma cut her off with sudden determination, ordering Hikaru to accompany her. Hikaru, though confused, agreed but expressed his need for clarity. Before any further conversation could take place, Aki launched a surprise attack. She leapt into the air with remarkable agility, but June intervened, blocking her strike with ease. His expression remained cold as he declared that he would not allow her to harm Hikaru, insisting that defeating Hikaru was his prerogative, not hers. Aki, refusing to relent, attempted to break free with quick, powerful kicks, but June overpowered her and held her immobilized. Hikaru, shocked by June's actions, commanded him to release her immediately. Though reluctant, June obeyed. Hikaru approached Aki cautiously, his concern evident. He expressed his belief that she wouldn't attack without a reason and reassured her of his willingness to help if she would only explain her actions. Aki hesitated, clearly struggling with her words, until Sinis and Dex stepped in to provide an explanation. Sinis revealed that Aki's sister, Fubuki, was alive but gravely ill due to a lack of arbitrium. He explained that Fubuki required a large amount to survive and that Aki had been seeking a solution. Dex added that Hikaru's awakening of Alma had likely filled his body with enough arbitrium to heal Fubuki. At the mention of Amaryllis, June scoffed, mockingly pointing out that her involvement was no surprise. He suggested that Fubuki must be under Amaryllis's control and accused her of orchestrating the entire situation. Sinis and Dex exchanged suspicious glances, but Hikaru cut through their argument, stating firmly that his focus was on helping Aki, whom he considered a friend. Aki froze at his words, visibly surprised. She questioned his use of the word friend, but Hikaru only nodded. Before the conversation could continue, Alan reminded the group of the banquet they needed to attend and urged them to resolve the matter quickly. Frustrated, June shouted about being ignored, accusing everyone of overlooking his warnings about Amaryllis. When he attempted to physically block Hikaru, the latter firmly pushed him aside, asserting that June had no authority to stop him. Turning to Aki, Hikaru extended his hand and vowed to help her save Fubuki, no matter the cost. Aki, moved by Hikaru's determination, felt her resolve waver. Initially planning to sacrifice him, she now struggled with guilt. She responded coldly, stating that he didn't need to help her and that it would be better to find a solution without involving a stranger. Dismissing his words of friendship, she turned away and left, leaving Hikaru confused and unsure of her true intentions. Elsewhere, two Kagami Group scientists delved into Amaryllis's records, uncovering details about a failed experiment that had resulted in widespread casualties, including Fubuki's apparent death. The scientists began piecing together clues, suspecting Amaryllis's involvement but remaining uncertain of her motives. Aki, meanwhile, returned to Fubuki and Amaryllis. The latter observed her intently, questioning why Hikaru was not with her. Aki justified her decision by insisting she did not want to involve others in her family's problems. Fubuki, bitter and resentful, accused Aki of prioritizing others over her and of failing to make the necessary sacrifices to save her. Stricken with guilt, Aki resolved to use her own body as a source of arbitrium to heal her sister. Amaryllis, watching Aki surrender, smiled coldly. Back at the group's base, Alma attempted to convince Hikaru to pursue Aki, but he hesitated, feeling rejected. He explained that Aki had stated she did not need him and that he could not force his help upon her. Overhearing this, Jun grabbed Hikaru by the collar, demanding he make a decision whether he would let Aki die or stand by her. Forced to confront his feelings, Hikaru admitted his desire to save Aki despite her rejection. Alma encouraged him, stating that what mattered was his resolve, not Aki's words. With newfound determination, Hikaru enlisted the help of allies to track Aki's movements. Meanwhile, Chu uncovered information revealing that Amaryllis had resurfaced with the intent of harnessing Hikaru's arbitrium. She had been manipulating Aki from the start, orchestrating the events to serve her own mysterious agenda. Amaryllis is frustrated because Aki didn't bring Hikaru to her after all the effort she put into pretending to be Aki's sister. She drops the charade and decides to get rid of Aki once and for all, using her puppets. Aki begins to realize the real Fubuki would never act this way, and Amaryllis calls her an idiot for taking so long to figure it out. Amaryllis attacks Aki with her puppets, and Aki defends herself well, but then Amaryllis starts acting like Fubuki again, catching Aki off guard. While Aki is distracted, Amaryllis captures and restrains her. Amaryllis had planned to keep using Fubuki's body for a while longer, but now that she has Aki, why not take her body too? Steenies and Dex try to hold Amaryllis back, but they know Aki won't allow them to destroy Fubuki, as that would mean hurting her sister. This situation is eerily similar to the first time Amaryllis took over Fubuki's body, back when Aki and Fubuki's parents were desperately trying to make Amaryllis release their daughter. But Amaryllis wasn't about to give up such a good puppet, so she killed Fubuki's parents with her own hands. Aki is devastated, and Amaryllis is about to finish what she started by taking Aki's life to claim her body as well. However, at the last second, Hikaru and Juan crash through the window and knock Amaryllis down. Aki screams at Hikaru, telling him to leave since she knows Amaryllis is after him, but he responds that he doesn't care about the danger, he's here to save his friend. When Amaryllis tries to attack Hikaru, Juan steps in, saying no one but him can touch Hikaru. Aki tries to stop Juan to keep him from hurting Fubuki, but Juan doesn't care about Fubuki's well-being, he just wants to ensure Amaryllis doesn't kill Hikaru. At this moment, Amaryllis grabs Juan and throws him aside, attempting to reach Hikaru. But Juan doesn't give up and uses his mecha to restrain Amaryllis. She finds it amusing that Juan thinks he can defeat her with an artificial mecha, a mere imitation of her own. She sarcastically remarks how ironic it is for a failure like him to possess such a weak machine. Juan is offended, but before he can retort, Amaryllis silences him and resumes her attack on Hikaru. Alma blocks her blow but feels a strange sensation of power leaving his body every time Amaryllis strikes him. It's going to be tough to fight if Amaryllis can absorb his energy during the battle. Aki steps in front of Hikaru, trying to protect him, and Amaryllis mocks her, asking if she still thinks she can play bodyguard for Hikaru after everything she's done. Aki responds that she's not protecting him as a bodyguard, but because she cares about him, period. Amaryllis laughs, saying that as long as she has Fubuki's body, Aki can't hurt her without risking her sister's life, making Aki practically useless in the fight. Aki is captured, leaving Hikaru to fight alone. He holds his ground, but Amaryllis uses Aki as a human shield, distracting Hikaru long enough to pierce him with one of her tentacles. Once inside him, she begins draining all of Hikaru's Arbitrium. As she does, she remarks that Hikaru has the same incredible Arbitrium from 100 years ago. Hearing this, Alma gets a sense that something significant happened a century ago. Noticing Alma's confused expression, Amaryllis realizes the rumors about his memory loss must be true, which infuriates her. She plunges more tentacles into Hikaru, relishing the moment as she finally obtains the Arbitrium she's been seeking. Now that she has Hikaru's Arbitrium, she no longer needs Aki and decides to strangle her to death. But when Aki pleads for help, Hikaru's body responds, suddenly overflowing with Arbitrium. Amaryllis is thrilled, as she's never had so much Arbitrium in her possession. However, the excess starts to overload her system, and while she's distracted, Hikaru and Alma manage to free Aki. With the intense light of the Arbitrium, the fight seems to end. When the dust settles, Hikaru, Aki, and Juan are lying on the ground, unsure of what just happened. But one thing Juan is sure of, he's going to make Amaryllis pay for everything she's done. He gets up, grabs Amaryllis with his mecha, and tries to rip her out of Fubuki's body. Amaryllis resists, but Juan, fueled by rage, finds the strength to overpower her. Once Amaryllis is separated from Fubuki, the young girl regains control of her body, and Aki is relieved to see her sister is okay. However, even without her main host, Amaryllis still commands her other puppets and tries to use them to capture Aki. Now that she can no longer use Fubuki as a shield, it becomes easier for Aki to resist and fight back against Amaryllis. Hikaru takes the lead, and with Alma's help, they finally defeat her. Before being destroyed, Amaryllis leaves one last message: "It's Alma's fault I ended up like this. He caused the death of Yukumo Kagami." The next morning, everything seems to return to normal, with Aki crashing through Hikaru's newly repaired window, and the two heading to school together. On the way, Aki apologizes to Hikaru for causing so much trouble, but Hikaru tells her not to worry, friends are there to help each other through tough times. Aki then asks Hikaru for a favor. She wants him to help her study. This seems like a simple request, but Hikaru doesn't understand why she wants to study now, having missed all the exams. Aki explains that she wants to study to help Fubuki catch up and get her grades back on track, as she's in recovery and adjusting to her body again. Alma is taking good care of her, and Aki has decided to stay with the organization, promising to continue protecting Hikaru 24/7. While Hikaru is happy to have Aki around again, he tells her she doesn't need to follow him so much. Meanwhile, at the Kagami Group's research lab, the construction of a portal to the Mecha-Ude world has been completed. They plan to use it to control all the dormant mechas, but to activate it, they need Alma, and they're willing to use every resource at their disposal to capture him. End of episode 6. Subscribe so you don't miss the next part. The next day, on the way to school, Hikaru's friends secretly follow him, spying from a corner when two very suspicious figures show up and start teasing him. To Aki, these two figures are actually agents from the ARMS organization, sent as extra bodyguards for Hikaru since Aki couldn't protect him properly. Since the order came directly from ARMS, Aki has no right to refuse their help, even if she wanted to. Coincidentally, Kazuha is nearby. After failing to capture Hikaru previously, he was demoted, lost his mecha, and was reduced to a mere security guard. However, upon spotting Hikaru, he believes this is the perfect opportunity to reclaim his honor and attempts to capture him. Before he can, Aki swiftly grabs Hikaru's hand and, without much thought, jumps off a bridge with him, landing in the bed of a moving truck. The driver, oblivious to the impact of two teenagers falling onto his vehicle, keeps driving as if nothing happened. Hikaru, on the other hand, deeply regrets how terribly his day is starting. Meanwhile, Alma tries to apologize for ruining Hikaru's normal life, but Hikaru replies that there's nothing to apologize for since they're in this together. No matter how insane things get, they'll face them side by side, at least until Alma regains his memories. Speaking of which, Alma seems about to reveal something important, but before he can, Cenes and Dex interrupt, passionately debating whether honey or jam is better while preparing breakfast for Hikaru and Aki on top of the truck. Hikaru cuts in to warn them that the truck is heading in the wrong direction, and honestly, he has no idea where they're being taken. Suddenly, the truck comes to an abrupt stop, and the driver is hit with a tranquilizer dart. Members of the Kagami group show up to capture Hikaru, including the chief of the 3rd Division, a gothic woman named Lua, who seems visibly disinterested in the mission. She orders her subordinates to deal with the situation quickly. That's all Lua needs to hear to start unleashing a rain of spikes with her shackled mecha machine gun. Aki protects Hikaru, pulling him behind the truck as Lua destroys the vehicle. Amid the chaos, Aki yells at Hikaru to go to school to avoid bigger trouble from being absent. Resigned, Hikaru tries to escape. However, Kazuha blocks his path. Meanwhile, Oyama and Keano, held back by Hikaru's friends due to a misunderstanding, are too busy to help. Kazuha declares he'll capture Hikaru to redeem himself, but a rookie from Kagami's 3rd Division arrives, claiming the capture is his. Realizing the mecha the rookie is using is the one stripped from him, Kazuha flies into a rage and attacks, triggering a fight between the two. Meanwhile, Hikaru tries to find an escape route, surrounded by conflicts on all sides. Aki, on the other hand, tries to catch Lua off guard, but she dodges easily and nearly hits him with a shot. However, Lua accidentally collides with Kazuha, knocking them both over. In a moment of awkwardness, Kazuha ends up falling on top of her. The situation gets even more embarrassing when Lua yells at him for getting in the way, and Kazuha snaps back, accusing her of ruining the moment with her stylish eye patch. Aki takes advantage of the distraction to knock them both out. With her allies defeated, the division chief decides she's done enough work for the day and orders a retreat, telling her subordinates to capture Hikaru if there's time. Meanwhile, Aki and Hikaru tie up their opponents. Alma, clearly shaken, tries to tell Hikaru something important, but Aki calls for his help as she's stuck in a comical position. However, Kazuha rises once again and attempts to attack Hikaru from behind. Alma quickly intervenes, blocking the attack, but it doesn't stop Hikaru from tripping and passing out. When he finally wakes up, everything has already been resolved, and the Kagami members have been neutralized. Alma, however, is visibly upset, blaming himself for letting Hikaru get hurt. Hikaru tries to reassure him, but Alma insists that no one else should get hurt because of him. Hikaru senses that Alma is hiding something and wonders if he has regained his memories. His suspicion is confirmed when Alma admits that he had recovered his memories since the fight against Amaryllis. Confused, Hikaru asks why Alma kept it a secret. Unsure of what to say, Alma simply states that Hikaru shouldn't be involved and walks away. Normally, Aki would chase after him, but she remembers that Alma can't stray more than 5 meters from Hikaru without losing his power. To her surprise, however, Alma keeps moving quickly and disappears from sight. At the ARM's headquarters, Alice reports that Alma must have regained his memories when he came into contact with Amaryllis. As for why he still retains his power, Fist explains that Alma had a special ability to generate his own Arbitrium, which likely returned along with his memories. This revelation leaves everyone stunned. Fist clarifies that discussing Alma's traumatic memories prematurely could have destabilized him. Now, the priority is locating him. Meanwhile, Hikaru reflects on how much his life has changed and realizes that the challenges ahead will only grow more daunting. Hikaru firmly declares that he wants to help, but Alice stares at him coldly and states that now that Alma can move on his own, he's no longer needed. You don't have to be involved in this anymore. The words hit like a blunt strike, leaving both Hikaru and Quinn in disbelief. Before Hikaru can respond, Quinn tries to ease the situation. Maybe this is a good thing, Hikaru. It means you can go back to your normal life. But for Hikaru, this wasn't a solution, let alone a good thing. He vehemently refuses, his voice firm and full of emotion. After everything I've been through with Alma, how do you expect me to just go back to my old life? It's not that simple. The tone of his voice causes Alice and Fist to exchange looks. Reluctantly, they finally decide to reveal the truth they had been keeping from him. Alice takes a deep breath before beginning. In Alma's world, where we come from, the Arbitrium is almost completely depleted. Our planet is on the brink of collapse, and all the Mecha-Udes are disappearing. She pauses, choosing her words carefully as she watches Hikaru's expression. That's why Alma, Fist, and another companion of ours set out to find Ordella, a legend that could save our world. Fist continues, his voice heavy with the weight of memory. We found Ordella. But to reach this place, we paid a high price. Before we became inactive due to a lack of energy, we fell to Earth. On the night they arrived, Yakumo Kagami, drawn by a strange light, found them. During the encounter, an accident almost took Yakumo's life, but Alma fused with him at the last second, saving him. Fist, in turn, bonded with Tsuko, Yakumo's older brother, who was suffering from a rare condition caused by Arbitrium. Tsuko agreed to help them search for Ordella, not just for the sake of their world, but also in the hope of curing himself. Yakumo, always impulsive and optimistic, joined the mission because he found it all thrilling. The search for Ordella was long and arduous, but when they finally found it and tried to awaken it, things took a dark turn. Ordella wasn't the salvation they had imagined, it was a destructive force, and its wrath was merciless. It defeated Tsuko and Fist in the blink of an eye, leaving Yakumo gravely injured. Even on the brink of death, Yakumo looked at Alma with a determined smile. No matter what happens, we face this together. Inspired by his words, they joined forces to seal Ordella once again. They succeeded, but Yakumo didn't survive the battle. Alma, devastated, became inactive from that moment on, the weight of guilt and loss keeping him silent until he met Hikaru. Alice concludes with a serious look. Now that Alma's memories have returned, he's afraid of losing you the same way he lost Yakumo. That's why he's trying to push you away. Hikaru feels a tightness in his chest. He understands Alma's behavior better now, but it only strengthens his resolve. Before he can react, Alice receives an urgent message. Alma has been captured by the Kagami group, who plan to use him to awaken Ordella again. Fist turns to Hikaru. Do you still want to stay involved in this? Without hesitation, Hikaru answers. I'm not going to abandon him. Not now. Not after all of this. Though reluctant, Fist allows him to join Aki on a rescue mission, with time running against them. As Hikaru prepares, he remembers Yakumo's words, we face this together. Now, it's his turn to say the same to Alma. Jun initially thinks Todo has come to take him back home, but the last thing he wants is to return. Without warning, he grabs Alma and tries to use him as a baseball bat, but Todo, with frightening ease, catches Alma and cuffs him, keeping him firmly restrained. The situation quickly escalates, and Todo reveals that he's there under orders from Nowo, Jun's older brother. Sorry, but I need to take you both back to Kami HQ, he says mercilessly. Without further explanation, he tosses them both into the back of a truck, starting a journey of no return. Meanwhile, Aki and Hikaru continue their search for Alma. Hikaru, struggling to keep up with his slow pace, falls behind, forcing Aki to carry him on his shoulders to save time. Despite their effort, they still have no idea where Alma might be. Then, Quinn calls Aki with a lead. I found someone who can help, he says, and before anyone can respond, Kajara drops from the ceiling with a dramatic entrance, arrogantly declaring that he's there to assist in the search. However, it's clear his real motive is his desire to go back home. He's fed up with Karo's voice. Hikaru's irritation is evident, especially with Kajaru's unbearably loud voice, which nearly draws the attention of Kagami Group sentinels. I don't think we need such noisy help, Hikaru mutters, but Aki tries calling Quinn again, asking for an alternative, though he can't get through. Meanwhile, back at the base, Quinn realizes he's lost access to all external signals. Keanu rushes in to inform him that the entire city is being covered by an interference signal, disrupting all communications. To find Alma, the only solution is to go into the field personally. Aljas, with his experience, already suspects Kagami Group's hand in this dirty play and decides to get directly involved. On the other side, Todo finally arrives at Ordella's lab with Alma and June, delivering them straight into the hands of the director of Division 3. The director, upon seeing them, barely hides his satisfaction. "Now we can move to the next phase," he says with a cold smile. June, still somewhat confused, is gagged and in a position he never imagined, while Alma is taken to the containment chamber. The director praises June but soon notices the gag and questions it. Todo, with a disdainful smile, responds, "Just a joke." June has his tastes, better not get involved. Without further ado, the director thanks him for his good work and invites them to witness the most important event of the century. June, stunned, cannot fully grasp what's happening. The director, seeing his confusion, explains with a disturbingly calm demeanor, "This is the Ordella portal, a passage to the world of the Mecha-Ude. Once we activate it, we'll use Ordella's power to invade and enslave everyone in their world for our benefit." June is in shock, never imagining his brother would be involved in something so absurd. At that moment, Noah appears, visibly irritated by June's presence, and with a look of disdain, says, "Now everything is ready, so stay quiet. We're starting the process." Meanwhile, Alma begins to awaken and, upon seeing Ordella, panics. He tries to convince everyone to stop, explaining that unleashing Ordella would be a fatal mistake, but the director is convinced that with the technology they've developed, they can control Ordella's power. "And once I have control, I'll open the portal to Mecha-Ude and even let Alma see his friends. But in the end, everyone there will be our slaves." Desperate, Alma tries to explain that Ordella isn't a portal but something far more dangerous. However, the director doesn't believe him, thinking it's just a ploy to buy time. He begins activating the portal, while the containment systems fail and Ordella's energy starts to spiral out of control. June, with a growing sense of panic, begs Noah to stop, but his brother just laughs and says, "This is exactly what I wanted." The lab begins to collapse under Ordella's power. Massive ice crystals form and stretch into the sky, visible even from the streets, where Hikaru and Aki witness the chaos from a distance. They know something terrible has happened, but before Aki can act, Hikaru is already running toward the site, determined to save Alma at any cost. Inside the lab, the director, stunned by the failure of his plan, prepares to evaluate, but his assistants urge him to leave as quickly as possible. Noah, however, doesn't care about any of that. The only thing that matters is achieving his goal, no matter the cost. Before the situation worsens further, Todo, with June in tow, watches the destruction and prepares for the next phase. June wakes up and starts questioning what's happening. Todo, with a grave look, gets ready to tell him the truth. "You're going to need to be ready to act, June. Now that you know." On the roof, the director prepares to escape with Alma in his helicopter, but before he can, Hikaru appears and demands that he let Alma go. Recognizing Hikaru, the director orders his capture. Hikaru, alone and vulnerable, realizes that acting without Aki at his side might have been a mistake. But just as all seems lost, Quinn shows up to help, though his presence isn't exactly what Hikaru expected. "Stay with them, Quinn." Hikaru shouts, even though he knows Quinn, like him, has no idea how to hold off the enemies. Ford begins firing his machine gun at Quinn, who miraculously manages to dodge the bullets without getting hit. However, Quinn knows he stands no chance against a mecha user, so he quickly starts looking for a solution. His eyes fall on a chained mecha nearby. Without hesitation, he rushes to the device designed to break the chains, frees the mecha, and begins merging with it. Although he lacks much experience, Quinn, now empowered by the mecha, manages to hold his own for a while. However, he soon realizes his body isn't trained to endure such power, and after a few minutes, he runs out of energy and collapses. Regretful that he couldn't help more, Aki reassures him upon seeing the situation. She knows Quinn managed to buy them time, allowing her to return with Hikaru. Aki is soon interrupted by Kazuha, who, after deeper integration with his mecha, is determined to prove that he can now defeat her. Without hesitation, Aki decides to stand still and let him attack. She blocks his blow with her bare hands, using his whip against him, making it clear that it's not the mecha holding him back, but his own lack of skill. Aki explains that unless he accepts his weaknesses, he'll never be able to defeat her. Enraged, Kazuha tries again, but Aki, out of patience for further displays, knocks him out with a swift strike. With Kazuha out of the way, Aki prepares to find Hikaru and Quinn, but a new opponent appears. Namba, introducing himself nonchalantly, says he only wants to talk, but Aki has no time for that. She tries to attack him, but Namba effortlessly dodges and reveals he's not there to fight but to fulfill his mission. He tries to persuade Aki to leave, but when she refuses, Namba is forced to engage in combat. Aki attempts to confuse Namba, but when he blocks her with his mecha, he scolds her, saying that kids like her shouldn't be running around with such powerful mechas. Although he admits she's skilled, he warns that he'll hurt her a bit to teach her a lesson. The duel between them begins, and despite the difference in experience, Aki manages to hold a strong defense. Meanwhile, Hikaru and Alma arrive at the director's helicopter, which, seeing the situation spiraling out of control, tries to take off quickly. However, THRG, a former Division 3 member, grabs the helicopter with his bare hands, preventing it from escaping. Keano, explaining that THRG has a soft spot for her, offers to handle other issues while Hikaru and Alma prepare to rescue Alma from the helicopter. However, Fort, still a threat, starts firing and ends up hitting oil barrels, causing a massive explosion. The blast throws Hikaru and Alma against Fort and the director, leaving them unconscious. Elsewhere in the building, Namba hears the explosion and decides he's done enough for his mission report. He reassures Aki that she no longer needs to worry about him, leaving her free to deal with her problems. Inside the helicopter, Hikaru wakes up first, followed by the director, who, furious, grabs Fort's gun and points it at Hikaru. Alma is still unconscious, and without a mecha, Hikaru has no means of defense. However, Kajaru, still conscious, helps Hikaru with a risky plan. Hikaru exposes himself to distract the director while Kajaru attacks from behind, scratching the director's face and creating an opportunity for Hikaru to rescue Alma. After a fierce strike, Hikaru manages to knock him out. Alma wakes up shortly after and, upon seeing Hikaru gravely injured, starts blaming himself for the chaos. He feels responsible for everything that happened, especially the activation of Ordella, and believes he should handle everything alone to prevent more people from getting hurt, as happened with Yakumo. Alma admits he ignored Yakumo's warnings because he was obsessed with his goals, which ultimately led to Yakumo's death. He doesn't want the same thing to happen to Hikaru, but Hikaru, understanding the weight of Alma's guilt, reassures him. They need to save the city, and Hikaru is willing to fight to the death if necessary. Alma, though reluctant, agrees to fight alongside Hikaru, and the two set off together, confident that, united, they can win. Hikaru and Alma leap from the helicopter, soaring directly toward Ordella. But the creature quickly spots them. Without hesitation, it begins firing lasers and launching ice spears in their direction, turning their approach into a deadly game. Hikaru and Alma attempt to destroy the spears, but the ice is so incredibly resilient that they can't break through. Ordella's relentless attacks make even a brief moment to plan impossible. Meanwhile, Chu and Kadana analyze the ice crystals and uncover something alarming. They are composed of high-density arbitrium, a virtually indestructible material for humans or mechas. Although Ordella's seal has been broken, it still can't fully move. This grants them a small window of opportunity to channel Alma's power into the rings around Ordella to try and seal it again. But this mission will be far from easy, and Ordella clearly knows it, attacking mercilessly at anything that comes close. Alma and Hikaru take a deep breath and prepare for another attempt. However, as they press forward, the situation becomes even more desperate. Spikes of Arbitrium rise in their path, forming nearly impenetrable barriers, while Ordella's attacks grow increasingly fierce. The creature has no blind spots, every movement is tracked and punished with deadly precision. The situation seems hopeless until Hikaru comes up with a bold idea and asks Quinn to call Aki. Hikaru quickly explains his plan. The only chance is to distract Ordella long enough for him and Alma to reach the rings. The task falls to Tuss, the sniper. Despite the evident risk, Tuss accepts without hesitation. With Aki providing support, he adjusts his sniper rifle's scope, charges a maximum power round, and fires. The bullet crosses the battlefield and strikes Ordella's hand, causing no visible damage but successfully drawing its attention. The creature swivels its monstrous body and focuses its deadly laser on Tuss. Quinn and Jammerer step to the front line, raising their shields to block the laser, diverting Ordella's attention for a few precious seconds. It's enough time for Hikaru and Alma to seize the opening and fly toward the rings. When Alma channels her power, it seems like the plan is finally working. Ordella begins to shrink, and the air fills with tense hope. But suddenly, the rings fail. Ordella roars in fury, its attacks returning with overwhelming intensity. Chu shouts for Tuss to fire again, and he complies, managing to distract Ordella for another moment. However, this time, the creature is smarter. Even while targeting Tuss, it launches an additional attack at Hikaru. The strike would have been fatal, but June appears at the last moment, blocking the laser and saving Hikaru. The building where Aki and the others are stationed begins to collapse under the relentless assault, forcing an immediate evacuation. With everyone safe, Hikaru thanks June for his rescue. June, confident in his new mecha, volunteers to face Ordella alone. Alma, however, intervenes, warning that it's suicide. June, clearly offended, decides to prove otherwise. Ignoring protests, he charges toward Ordella alone. Arbitrium crystals rise to block his path, but June destroys them effortlessly, each strike a testament to his strength. Both Alma and Hikaru watch in astonishment as he advances relentlessly. However, when Ordella starts firing lasers again, June is forced to retreat, admitting he can't handle the creature on his own. "But how did you break the Arbitrium?" Hikaru asks, intrigued. June explains it's thanks to a new mecha designed by Toto, an upgraded version capable of manipulating Arbitrium flows. "With enough skill, even the impossible can become tangible," he says, a confident smile breaking through the tension. He accomplishes this with surprising ease. Hikaru and Alma commend June on his incredible abilities, and June basks in the praise, though the group still has a job to do. Approaching Ordella with those constant laser barrages won't be easy. June had hoped to save some of his strength for later, but it seems he'll have to give it his all to carve a path. Just as he's about to charge again, Hikaru stops him, suggesting they work together to take down Ordella. Kagami is fine with teamwork but questions what Hikaru plans to do, given that they already tried sealing Ordella once and failed. That may be true, but after analyzing June's fight with Ordella, Quinn realized June's mecha appears to weaken Ordella upon contact. If June immobilizes Ordella and Hikaru strikes, they might be able to seal it again. With the plan ready, June breaks off a piece of Arbitrium crystal for Hikaru to use as a weapon, and they take to the skies to launch a surprise attack on Ordella. Hikaru hurls June at Ordella, who manages to pin it down before it can react. It's now up to Hikaru and Alma to ensure Ordella stays down. They launch the Arbitrium crystal into Ordella's core. June then begins reconstructing the rings to seal it, while Hikaru and Alma prepare their strongest strike yet. The blow, a meteor impact, completely obliterates the Kami building and everything around it, but successfully seals Ordella. In the end, the plan works, though June is annoyed for not being warned about the massive destructive strike. After all this chaos, there is no way the Kagami group can cover up what happened, especially with news helicopters reporting live. Speaking of the Kagami group, June still has something to settle, so he parts ways with Hikaru. When Hikaru asks where he's going, June says it's a family matter he needs to handle alone. Alma doesn't fully understand, but senses it's important, so she wishes him luck. Soon after, June confronts his brother in a nearby alley, but he won't fall for tricks this time, knowing Amaryllis is behind everything. Amaryllis is surprised he figured it out but doesn't believe a failure like him can do anything. June wastes no time and attacks Amaryllis, but she grabs his mecha and reminds him she can drain energy from people. She begins to sap June's energy, but he surprises her as his new mecha possesses the same energy draining ability, only better. He drains Amaryllis's energy and declares he will destroy her once and for all. Amaryllis tries to argue, claiming that if she is destroyed, June's brother might die. But June has already planned for this, having learned how to extract a UDE mecha from someone without harming them. He does exactly that, leaving Amaryllis on the brink of destruction. She collapses to the ground, powerless. June then recalls his conversation with Toto about everything. Toto initially tried convincing June to use the new mecha to defeat Ordella without revealing all the details, but June knew Toto was hiding something and demanded the full truth. Toto was pleased to see June more assertive, as it showed he was ready to do what needed to be done. Meanwhile, Hikaru and Alma stand atop one of the Arbitrium peaks, surveying the chaos in the city but feeling a sense of resolution to their problems. Hikaru had initially intended to stay with Alma only until he regained his memories, but Alma asks if he would be willing to accompany him until he finds a way back to his world. Hikaru agrees, and the two shake hands to seal their alliance. However, down below, the problems are far from over. Toto, gravely injured, still needs to deliver an important message. Barely able to crawl, he reaches Quinn, who is suspicious of his intentions and calls Aki for assistance. When Aki arrives, Toto collapses from exhaustion, proving he isn't there to fight. At the same time, Alesh and Fist confront Alma and Hikaru. Alma attempts to apologize for past events, but it's clear Fist still holds a grudge. Meanwhile, Aki climbs the Arbitrium peaks with Toto, who reveals that the true culprit behind all this is Yakumo. Hikaru is shocked upon learning this truth. Hikaru watches in shock, unable to process what he's seeing. Yakuma, who should have been dead for decades, is there, moving as if he were a puppet. Fist confirms the obvious with a cold smile, explaining that Yakuma did indeed die, but his body now serves as a tool for his own goals. He's just a useful shell, Fist says with chilling indifference. He then turns to Alma, revealing that, on the day of the accident, he too evolved, just like Alma and Amaryllis. Now, he can create his own Arbitrium, but that's not enough. Fist reveals that Ordella, the legendary power that brought them to this world, is his true objective. Alma stares at Fist seriously, admitting that Ordella might be the key to saving his people, but hesitates as he considers the cost. If it means destroying the human world, I will never do it, Alma declares. Fist, unfazed, corrects him, you still don't get it. I don't want to awaken Ordella, I want to break Rella's seal and claim the power for myself. I've spent the last 100 years studying how to do it. Fist argues that with Ordella's power, he could free the Mecha-Ude from their dependence on humans, allowing them to create their own Arbitrium and take their rightful place in the world. But Alma, aware of the immense power at stake, fears it will lead to catastrophe. You'll destroy everything, humans and mechas alike. Alma shouts. Fist's disdain for humans is evident. To him, they are insignificant, illogical, and weak. The human world is an obstacle that must be overcome. Fist extends his hand in an almost friendly gesture, asking Alma to join him in the quest for a new home for the mecha. Alma refuses, firm in his decision to protect both humans and mechas. You're blinded by arrogance. Alma rebukes. Disappointed, Fist decides to proceed with his plans alone. He launches energy chains, trapping Alma, while Hikaru, injured and exhausted, tries to stop Fist from taking him. At that moment, Aki and June arrive, recognizing the critical situation. Hikaru quickly explains what happened, but before they can act, Fist is already retreating, taking Alma with him. The tension rises as Aki and June argue about their next move, but urgency prevails. The three leap from a peak, determined to rescue Alma. Meanwhile, Fist arrives at the crater where Ordella is sealed. Before he can advance, Aki, June, and Hikaru descend like a storm, landing forcefully. "You lied all along," Aki accuses, but Fist simply smiles, replying that he never hid his mission, to save the Mecha-Ude at any cost. June ignores Fist's words and charges forward, focused only on rescuing Alma. However, Fist seems invincible until his body begins to show signs of malfunction. The distraction is enough for June to land a powerful blow, freeing Alma. Aki seizes the opportunity, leaping and delivering a devastating punch to Fist, sending him flying. But the victory is short-lived. Now enraged, Fist summons chains that ensnare Aki by the neck, while a dark presence emerges. Amaryllis, still alive, crawls out from June's jacket. "More power. I need more power," Amaryllis pleads in a chilling voice. Fist injects a mysterious compound called Siren into Amaryllis's fragmented body. In seconds, Amaryllis transforms, growing into a massive and menacing colossus. The newly empowered Amaryllis charges forward, knocking Aki down with a single blow. Hikaru, June, and Alma watch in horror. The battle that follows will be unlike anything they've faced before. Amaryllis advances, and Hikaru tries to stop her, but June holds him back, reminding him that only his mecha can naturally fight Amaryllis. June attacks, slamming Amaryllis to the ground. Wasting no time, he attempts to pursue Fist, but Fist, having anticipated this, uses his knowledge of June's mecha to create an extra arm on his back. June, shocked by the sight, doesn't notice Emerald approaching stealthily and ends up being pinned to the ground. Initially, Fist didn't want to kill anyone, but June keeps interfering with his plans. With no other options, he decides to finish June once and for all. However, before Fist can deliver the fatal blow, Hikaru attacks him from behind. The attack fails, but is enough to distract Fist and prevent him from killing June. Irritated, Fist tries again to tear Alma away from Hikaru, threatening to rip his arm off if he doesn't surrender. But Hikaru, determined, channels all his energy into Alma, trying to break free. Fist is caught off guard by the sudden surge of energy, causing the components controlling Yakuma's body to explode. Despite Fist's control over Yakuma's corpse, it remains a lifeless body sustained by machines, which now begin to fail. Realizing that the body won't last much longer, Fist wastes no time. He grabs Hikaru and drags him into the crater. There, he forcibly extracts Alma from Hikaru's body and begins using it to break Rella's seal. Alma regains consciousness and pleads with Fist to stop, but it's too late. A cocoon of energy, the Arbitrium shell, starts forming around Fist as he orders Amaryllis to protect him during the power transfer process. Fist feels the limitless power of Ordella flowing into his body. He tries to convince Alma to share this power, but Alma refuses and calls out to Hikaru to fight back. Frustrated, Fist decides to showcase his new abilities. Using Ordella's power, he drains the Arbitrium from all humans in the city, causing them to collapse. Amused, Fist is interrupted by Hikaru, who refuses to give up. Despite being knocked down countless times, Hikaru keeps rising, trying to reach Alma. Together, Hikaru and Alma gather enough energy to overload Fist, forcing him to sacrifice both Alma and his own arm to maintain control. The attack weakens Fist's display of power, allowing nearby humans to recover. However, despite Alma being his brother, Fist shows no mercy. He fires a lethal strike at Alma. With no time to react, Alma is saved by Hikaru, who pushes him out of the attack's path. But the impact pierces through Hikaru's chest, leaving him unable to rise again. Enraged at wasting a fatal strike on Hikaru, Fist prepares another attack. Before he can act, the Arbitrium shell completes its formation, and Fist moves forward to finalize his assimilation with Ordella. Meanwhile, Amaryllis, now fueled by Ordella's infinite energy, grows even more powerful. Instead of exploiting her newfound strength, she obeys Fist, guarding him until the fusion is complete. June and Aki arrive to confront her. June blocks Amaryllis's initial attack, but Aki freezes upon seeing Hikaru's body on the ground, a gaping hole in his chest. At that moment, Fist's cocoon is pulled out of the crater and lifted to the top of a skyscraper. At the bottom of the crater, Aki's allies arrive in time to rescue Jun and Hikaru, bringing them to an improvised shelter. Hikaru is in critical condition. When Aki wakes up, she asks about Hikaru, but the answer is grim. His condition is rapidly deteriorating, and they lack the resources to save him. Meanwhile, Keanu analyzes the energy emanating from the cocoon and realizes they have only 30 minutes before Fist completes the assimilation, which will enable him to drain the arbitrium from every human in the world. At that moment, a stranger named Nadora from the Kagami group appears, offering assistance. Despite their doubts, Keanu agrees, knowing they need all the help they can get. Desperate to protect the others, Aki leads a team to attack Amaryllis. Initially gaining the upper hand, Aki is distracted by taunts about Hikaru's condition, allowing Amaryllis to overpower her. Just when all seems lost, a smoke bomb detonates, revealing Fubuki, Aki's sister. Together, along with their allies, they manage to defeat Amaryllis. Now, their only hope lies with Todo, who must use the Esli Mecha to break through the cocoon. But it's too late. Fist completes the assimilation, merging with Odella, while Hikaru's heart finally stops. The episode ends with the looming global threat of Fist, as Hikaru appears to have met his definitive end.